The automatic doors of Oak Ridge General Hospital slid open, but the reception Dennis Gallagher received was anything but welcoming. His 7-year-old daughter, Lily, rested against his chest, her face pale and her left arm cradled awkwardly against her side. They had been building a treehouse in the backyard when a branch snapped. Dennis was covered in sawdust mud and streaks of old paint. His faded work jacket and worn-out boots made him look rough, but his only concern was the muffled whimpers coming from his child. He approached the main admissions desk where a man in a crisp, tailored suit stood reviewing a clipboard. His gold name tag read Gregory Vance, head of admissions. "Excuse me." Dennis began, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. "My daughter took a bad fall. I need to get her arm looked at right away." Gregory slowly lifted his gaze, his eyes trailing up and down Dennis's muddy boots and stained jacket. A look of profound distaste washed over his face. He did not move toward the phone. He did not signal for a triage nurse. Instead, he took a step back as if Dennis's appearance might contaminate the sterile reception area. "The free clinic is 3 miles down the road on 5th Street. Gregory replied, his tone dripping with condescension. "This is a private facility. We don't handle walk-ins of your nature without prior authorization." Dennis tightened his hold on Lily. He did not raise his voice. He simply locked eyes with the man. "She's not a walk-in of any nature. She's a child in pain. I need a doctor. And I need proof of premium insurance or a $5,000 deposit before I even print a bracelet," Gregory countered, leaning against the counter. "You're blocking the line for our scheduled patients. I suggest you take the bus to the county hospital." Dennis glanced over the shoulder. The lobby was entirely empty. There was no line. He looked back at Gregory, memorizing the man's face, his posture, and the absolute arrogance in his eyes. Dennis could have shouted. He could have caused a scene. But creating a disturbance would only delay Lily's medical care, and that was the one thing he refused to compromise on. "Let me get my wallet," Dennis offered, reaching into his pocket with his free hand. He didn't carry his premium black card in his work pants, but he had a standard credit card that could clear the deposit 10 times over. Before his fingers could grasp the leather, a young nurse in blue scrubs hurried out from the double doors leading to the emergency wing. She took one look at Lily's arm and moved forward. "Sir, bring her over here. Let's get her into triage." "Sarah, stop!" Gregory interrupted, snapping his fingers toward the nurse. "We are currently at capacity for non-verified intake. You know the new protocol. We aren't a charity ward. Get back to Station 3. Sarah hesitated, her eyes darting between the administrative head and the injured little girl. "But Mr. Vance, she clearly needs an x-ray and I can just—" "I gave you a directive, nurse," Gregory warned, his voice lowering to a harsh whisper. "Unless you want to pay for her imaging out of your own paycheck, you will return to your post." Sarah looked at Dennis with a deep apologetic sorrow, but she slowly backed away toward the doors. Dennis watched the entire exchange with cold clarity. He realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a systemic failure. The man in charge of the gates was deliberately locking them based on nothing but visual prejudice. Dennis stopped reaching for his wallet. Giving this man his money suddenly felt like a betrayal of his own principles. He looked at Gregory one last time, his expression completely unreadable. "You're right," Dennis murmured quietly. "This isn't the right place for us." "Finally, some common sense," Gregory muttered, turning back to his clipboard and entirely dismissing their existence. "Don't track mud on your way out." Dennis didn't waste another breath on him. He adjusted Lily in his arms, whispering a soft reassurance into her hair, and turned his back on the reception desk. He walked out the automatic doors into the cool evening air, leaving the sterile, hostile environment behind. He already had a plan forming, but first he needed to make a phone call. Once outside in the parking lot, Dennis placed Lily gently into the passenger seat of his heavy-duty pickup truck, buckling her in with care. He pulled out his phone and bypassed his regular contacts, tapping a direct line he rarely used. "Dr. Evans." Dennis spoke the moment the line connected. "I'm at the Oak Ridge parking lot. Lily took a fall. I suspect a fractured radius. Can you meet me at your private clinic?" "Give me 15 minutes, Dennis." The voice on the other end responded immediately. "Bring her straight through the back entrance." Dennis hung up and started the engine. Dr. Evans was a top-tier orthopedic specialist whom Dennis retained for his entire corporate staff. The clinic was only 10 minutes away. As he drove, Dennis kept glancing at Lily, who was braving the pain with quiet tears. His heart ached for her, but beneath the concern, a quiet, calculated anger was settling in his chest. At the clinic, Dr. Evans was waiting. Within 30 minutes, Lily was x-rayed, medicated, and having a bright purple cast fitted around her arm. The fracture was clean, and she was already smiling again, enjoying the special lollipop the doctor had given her. "She'll be perfectly fine, Dennis," Dr. Evans assured him, washing his hands in the corner of the exam room. But why didn't you just take her into Oak Ridge? It's practically in your backyard. They didn't have room for us. Dennis answered calmly. Dr. Evans frowned, looking confused. Oak Ridge, their ER, has been running at half capacity all week. I check the boards daily. Their head of admissions felt my work jacket didn't meet their financial requirements. Dennis added, his voice flat. Dr. Evans stopped drying his hands. He stared at Dennis, recognizing the dangerous calm in his tone. Dennis, do they have any idea who you are? No, Dennis replied, picking up his keys. But they will by Friday. He walked over to his daughter, carefully scooping her up with his right arm. The immediate crisis was over. Lily was safe and treated. Now it was time for Dennis to return to his element and handle the disrespect exactly the way he handled bad business deals, by pulling the plug. 3 days later, the atmosphere in the executive suite of Gallagher Enterprises was sharp and focused. Dennis sat behind a massive oak desk wearing a tailored navy suit that fit him perfectly. The mud and sawdust were gone, replaced by the quiet authority of a man who managed a massive real estate and development portfolio across the state. His assistant Mark walked in and placed a thick leather binder on the desk. Here are the final documents for the Oak Ridge Hospital expansion, Dennis. The board has already signed off on their end. They are just waiting for your signature to release the $20 million grant and approve the land lease for the new pediatric wing. Dennis opened the folder. He looked at the glossy architectural renderings of the new wing. It was a project he had cared about deeply, a philanthropic effort to improve pediatric care in the county. But his perspective had shifted radically over the last 72 hours. Mark, Dennis called out before his assistant could leave the room. Halt the wire transfer. Mark paused, turning around with a surprised expression. Halt it, sir. The hospital board is expecting the funds to clear by tomorrow morning. They've already scheduled a press conference for the groundbreaking. Cancel our attendance at the press conference, too, Dennis instructed, closing the leather binder with a firm snap. And draft an email to Dr. Marcus Aris, the CEO of Oak Ridge. Tell him the expansion funding is officially on indefinite hold, pending a full review of their patient intake protocols. Mark blinked, realizing something serious had happened. Understood. Should I give them a reason? Tell him the primary investor is not satisfied with the culture of his admissions department. Dennis clarified. And tell him I want an in-person meeting tomorrow at noon, in his boardroom. I want the entire executive team there, including the head of admissions. I'll get it sent immediately. Mark nodded, hurrying out of the office. Dennis leaned back on his leather chair, looking out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city skyline. He didn't need to sue the hospital. He didn't need to shout at a receptionist. He owned the land they wanted to build on, and he held the pen that authorized their future. He was going to teach them a lesson in basic humanity, using the only language they seemed to understand. The email hit the hospital's executive servers like a seismic shock. Within an hour, Dennis's phone was buzzing with frantic calls from Dr. Aris, which Dennis let go straight to voicemail. He had no intention of having a hurried defensive conversation over the phone. The stage was set for tomorrow. At 11:30 a.m. the next day, Dennis arrived at Oak Ridge General. He did not pull up in his corporate town car. He drove the same heavy-duty pickup truck he had used the night Lily was hurt. More importantly, he wore the exact same clothes, the faded work jacket, the denim jeans, and the worn-out boots. He walked through the main doors, his posture relaxed but purposeful. The lobby was bustling today. He bypassed the main reception and walked straight toward the VIP elevator bank, a restricted area meant only for board members, high-level donors, and executive staff. Standing right outside the elevators, holding a clipboard and looking incredibly stressed, was Gregory Vance. Gregory was barking orders at a janitor about a smudge on the glass doors when he caught sight of Dennis approaching. His eyes widened slightly, recognizing the jacket and the face from a few nights prior. His stress instantly morphed back into arrogant irritation. "Hey, you," Gregory called out, stepping directly into Dennis's path to block the elevator call button. "I told you 3 days ago we don't do handouts here, and this is the executive wing. You are trespassing." Dennis stopped, leaving a respectful distance between them. "I have a noon appointment." "No, you don't." Gregory laughed, a harsh, dismissive sound. "The CEO is preparing for a meeting with our largest benefactor. If you don't turn around and walk out those doors right now, I am calling security to have you dragged out." Dennis didn't flinch. He didn't argue. He simply looked at the elevator display, watching the numbers tick down as the car descended. "I suggest you let me pass, Gregory." "That's it," Gregory snapped, reaching for the radio clipped to his belt. "Security, I need a guard at the VIP bank. We have a vagrant refusing to leave." 2 security guards jogging from the main entrance arrived just as the elevator doors chimed and slid open. Gregory crossed his arms, looking smug as he pointed at Dennis. "Escort this man off the property. Use force if necessary. The guards stepped forward, but before they could lay a hand on Dennis, an older man with silver hair and a sharp suit rushed out of the elevator. It was Dr. Marcus Aris, the hospital CEO. He looked panicked, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. Dr. Aris looked right past Gregory and locked eyes with Dennis. The CEO's face fell in relief and horror simultaneously. Mr. Gallagher. Dr. Aris breathed out, stepping forward and extending both hands. I am so sorry I wasn't down here to greet you personally. There was a crisis with the board. Gregory froze. His hand hovered over his radio. The smug smile evaporated from his face, replaced by a blank mask of confusion. He looked at the CEO, then at the man in the dirty work jacket. Dr. Aris? Gregory interrupted, his voice trembling slightly. There's been a mistake. This man is a vagrant. He was here a few nights ago trying to solicit free medical care. Dr. Aris turned to Gregory, his expression hardening into pure ice. Shut your mouth, Vance. This is Dennis Gallagher, CEO of Gallagher Enterprises and the sole private funder of our new pediatric wing. The silence in the lobby was deafening. The security guards immediately stepped back, suddenly finding the floor tiles very interesting. Gregory's face drained of all color. His jaw worked silently, trying to form words that wouldn't come. Dennis didn't look at Gregory with triumph or malice. He just looked at him with the same calm observation he had used 3 nights ago. The appointment was for noon, Marcus, Dennis stated, checking his watch. I believe we have a lot to discuss regarding the future of this hospital. Of course, sir. Right this way, Dr. Aris replied nervously, gesturing toward the open elevator. Dennis stepped in. As the doors began to close, he finally looked directly at Gregory. Are you coming, Gregory? We wouldn't want you to miss your own performance review. The hospital boardroom was a grand, sterile space with a long mahogany table and panoramic views of the city. 7 department heads sat nervously in leather chairs. They had all been briefed that the $20 million deal was suddenly in jeopardy, but none of them knew why. When Dennis walked in wearing his work clothes, a ripple of confusion passed through the room. Dr. Aris quickly ushered Dennis to the head of the table. A moment later, Gregory Vance walked in looking like a man marching to the gallows. He took a seat at the very far end, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Dennis remained standing. He placed the thick leather binder on the table. He didn't yell. He didn't pound his fists. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, commanding the absolute attention of every person in the room. 3 nights ago, my 7-year-old daughter fell and broke her arm. Dennis began looking slowly around the table. I rushed her to the closest facility, this one. I was wearing these exact clothes. I was dirty from working in my yard. I was terrified for my child. Dr. Aris swallowed hard, a look of dreadful realization dawning on his face. When I reached the front desk, I was not asked for my daughter's name. I was not asked about her vitals, Dennis continued. He shifted his gaze down the table, pinning Gregory to his chair. I was told by your head of admissions that this was a private facility, that I needed a $5,000 deposit to even be considered a human being worth treating. I was told to take the bus to the county clinic. Gasps echoed around the table. Several board members glared at Gregory, who was now staring at his hands, his face flushed dark red. A nurse tried to help. Dennis added, his tone softening slightly. Her name was Sarah, but she was threatened with a pay deduction by Mr. Vance if she intervened, so I took my daughter away and we found care elsewhere. Dennis opened the leather binder, revealing the signed contracts from the hospital board. His own signature line at the bottom remained blank. I am a businessman, Dennis stated. I look for investments that build value, but I will not invest $20 million into a facility whose gatekeepers value a tailored suit over a bleeding child. Mr. Gallagher, please, Dr. Aris pleaded, standing up. This is an isolated incident. This does not reflect the core values of Oak Ridge Hospital. We are deeply committed to patient care. Your policies reflect your values. Marcus, Dennis interrupted smoothly. And your front desk is executing policies that prioritize financial profiling over triage. That tells me there is a fundamental rot in how this hospital operates under the current administration. Dennis picked up a pen from the table. For a second, the board members held their breath, hoping he was going to sign the document. Instead, Dennis drew a thick black line straight through the signature block. He closed the binder and slid it across the mahogany table toward the CEO. The expansion funding is officially withdrawn, Dennis announced. And as the owner of the adjacent lot, I am declining the lease renewal for your current employee parking structure. You have 60 days to vacate my land. Panic erupted in the room. The board members began speaking over one another. This wasn't just the loss of a new wing. It was a logistical nightmare that would cripple their daily operations. Mr. Gallagher, we can fix the... One of the senior directors practically shouted, We can make changes today, right now. Gregory Vance finally found his voice. Sir, I I was just following the new financial triage guidelines. We have quotas. I didn't know you were... So, sir. You didn't know I had money? Dennis corrected him sharply, cutting off the excuse. That's the only mistake you think you made. If I had truly been a broke father with a hurt kid, you would have slept perfectly fine that night. Dennis turned back to Dr. Harris. I don't do business with people who manage healthcare like an exclusive country club. Unless there's a massive systemic overhaul in this hospital by Friday, my decision is final. With that, Dennis turned away from the table. He didn't wait for apologies. He didn't wait for promises. He simply walked toward the boardroom doors, leaving the executives in a state of absolute chaos. Dennis was halfway down the hallway when Dr. Harris caught up with him, breathless and desperate. Dennis, wait. Please, the CEO panted. Tell me exactly what you want. We cannot lose this funding. The community needs that pediatric wing. Dennis stopped and turned around. He looked at the CEO, measuring the man's sincerity. The community needs a hospital that actually serves them, Marcus, not just the ones who drive imported cars. I know. You're right, Dr. Harris admitted, running a hand through his silver hair. Vance is gone. I'm firing him the second I walk back into that room. He's done in this hospital, and I'll make sure his conduct is noted in his file. Firing one bad manager doesn't fix a broken culture, Dennis replied. You gave him the quotas. You created the environment where he felt comfortable threatening a nurse for trying to help a child. Dr. Harris looked down defeated. What are your terms? First, the financial triage mandate is scrapped immediately. Dennis laid out his voice firm. Medical need determines intake, not a credit check. Second, I want a third-party oversight committee established for the admissions department funded by my grant to ensure compliance. Done. The CEO agreed instantly. And finally, Dennis added a faint smile, touching his lips. There is a triage nurse named Sarah. She was the only person in this building who remembered her oath the night I came in. I want her promoted to patient liaison. She will have the authority to bypass administrative blocks in emergency situations. She answers to the medical chief, not a spreadsheet manager. Dr. Harris nodded rapidly. Consider it done, Dennis. I will have the new protocols drafted and on your desk by tomorrow morning. If the paperwork looks right, I'll sign the grant on Friday, Dennis stated. He didn't shake the CEO's hand. He just gave a curt nod. Clean up your house, Marcus. Dennis walked to the elevator, pressing the button. He felt a profound sense of closure. He hadn't just won an argument. He had shifted the balance of power. By Friday morning, the changes at Oak Ridge Hospital were visible. Gregory Vance's office was empty, his nameplate already removed from the door. The atmosphere in the reception area felt lighter, the tension broken. Dennis sat in his corporate office, a freshly brewed coffee on his desk. Mark walked in, handing him a new folder. The hospital sent over the finalized oversight protocols, Dennis. Nurse Sarah has officially been promoted and the new intake guidelines are active. Dennis reviewed the documents carefully. Dr. Harris had kept his word. The financial quotas were gone. The new protocols prioritized patient care above all else. Satisfied, Dennis uncapped his pen and signed his name at the bottom of the $20 million grant. He didn't do it out of forgiveness. He did it because he had established a hard boundary and he had forced the institution to respect it. Later that evening, Dennis sat on the floor of his living room. Lily was next to him, her purple cast, resting comfortably on a pillow as they played a board game. She laughed at a joke he made her eyes bright and happy. Dennis smiled, moving his game piece across the board. He had protected his daughter not just from a broken arm, but from a system that tried to make them feel small. He had used his resources not for petty revenge, but to tear down a gatekeeper and open the doors for everyone else. He didn't need a grand apology from Gregory. He didn't care where the man ended up. What mattered was that the next time a tired, dirty father walked through the doors of Oak Ridge General with a hurt child in his arms, he wouldn't be asked for a deposit. He would be asked how they could help. Dennis leaned back against the sofa, feeling entirely at peace. He had taken back control, and he had done it on his own terms. If you loved this story about setting boundaries and standing up to arrogance, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. We post new satisfying true-life drama stories every single week that you won't want to miss. Drop a comment below telling us how you would have handled that arrogant manager. Don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend who loves a good karma story. See you in the next one.